I want to tell a story about somebody who listens to Mishlei Share, and they really, really took everything to heart, and they had a very difficult situation, and they really could have given people a piece of their mind, and they didn't. I had a Chavrusa once. He said, "Don't give people too much of your mind. There might not be something left." Some people just want to give a piece of their mind. So that particular incident inspired me. I gave a shir which I sent out to a lot of people, called 100,000 Righteous Women Can Bring Mashiach, and I really believe that it's true. I'll just repeat the basic foundation of that class, which is something we've been talking about the past year, is that the main Beis HaMikdash is not the building. Baruch Hashem, I daven every morning at the Kosel, and we have a wall there, and behind it there's the mosque. It's not the building. It has almost nothing to do with the building. Chazal say the main Beis HaMikdash is B'shchanti B'socham, is the heart of the Jewish people. When the heart of the Jewish people has been cleaned out, we call that Nikur Alev, Kina, Taiva, and Kavod, jealousy, desire, and honor, and especially Sinas Chinam, which is any feeling towards anybody that somebody did something wrong to you and reacting. This last Thursday, somebody embarrassed me in public. They started screaming at me in public. And why? It had nothing to do with me. It was I allowed somebody to do something, and they were upset at that person, but because I was connected, they were screaming at me, and I was just quiet. And this morning, we had a very friendly conversation, because I realized, he was just in a bad mood. It was early in the morning. He gets there at 3 o'clock in the morning at the Kosel. He hasn't had coffee yet, So I just kept quiet. It was hard to daven, because I was very hurt. When someone embarrasses you in public, but I just kept quiet. And I felt so good about it, right? And that's really Nikur Alev, right? So I want to speak about this. And one of the reasons why it's hard is because we think that it will really be effective to give people a piece of their minds, right? So there's a beautiful grah here. It's at the end of Perek Lamed, and we'll get back to our regular Seder next week with Rad Hashem. But this is amazing pasuk. You just have to see this one. And without the grah, there's no way you could figure this out. Yeah? Look at Perek Lamed, pasuk Lamed Gimel. It says like this. And if anyone could offer a pshat in this pasuk, kol hakavod, without the grah, I don't know how you could figure this one out. Ki mitz chalav yotzi chema. From the meats, the grah explains meats is a lashon of crushing, right? When you crush milk, as it were, you get butter. And the meats off the juice of your forehead is blood. Umitz apayim, right? Yotziriv. And from the juice of apayim, these patience, or anger maybe, comes dispute. What's going on here? We're confused. At least I was. Okay, so listen to this grah. This is really a very, very powerful grah to have, especially when you really feel like you have to give someone a piece of your mind. Listen to this. Says the grah, Ki chema yotzi al yidei mitz hachalav. Right? How do you make butter? Anybody remember?
Yes.
Yes. You had in your house one of those butter?
No, it's in the blender.
Go.
Whole fat milk, put in the blender. Whole fat cream. Put it in the blender and blend it up, and then it separates and becomes butter and buttermilk.
Right, but they have those churns, no?
They have churns.
So meats chalav. So butter comes from milk. Ba'adam yotzi al yidei mitz hachotem. Right? A person punches someone in the nose, they bleed. Vayiriv yotzi al yidei mitz hapayim. Right? From the juice of your anger. Umitz hu lashon schik. Okay, so now the Gemara explains this pasuk. Beautiful. Shutam al shehizir sholaheshiv l'marcher foklal. Why is it such a silly thing? If somebody's screaming at you or doing something which really upsets you, right? The worst thing you could possibly do, and not only worse, but unintelligent, is to answer them back. Why is that? And he says, I'm going to learn this out, right? All of Mishlei is mashalim, how we can learn out important lessons from things around us. He says like this, Shutam al shehizir shaleshim b'char b'klal. Why should I be quiet when somebody embarrasses me in public? It's very difficult, especially when you're right, And totally unjustified, a guy gets up to you and in front of 50 people just screams at you. Where's that coming from? What should you do? So Tzigura says, don't answer them back. Why? So the first thing There's three reasons why a person will answer someone back. And the first reason is laharos shu gadol v'tov yos yimenu. The first reason I'll answer someone back is say, I'm much better than you. What are you talking to me like that for? Like chutzpah, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is to show him that he's wrong. Laharos bo sheker dibra alav ve'ein bo adavar harag tir klal. Like, this is totally unjustified. Why you're yelling at me? That's the second thing. And the third thing is kedei shelo yicharef oso od. Right, right, okay. They shouldn't do it again. Im yachrish lo ke'es al chirufo shecharfalo. Right. Va'amar stira l'kol. Oh, okay. So the third thing is, I want to make sure it doesn't happen again. I was just talking to someone about this yesterday, because unfortunately on Shabbos we heard about the pigua that happened in Yaakov, and we lived there for over 15 years. We know many, many people there. It was very strenuous for us. My neighbor's daughter was there, and it's just hard. You don't know who these people are, and whoever they are, it's a tremendous tragedy. And it's Shabbos, you can't really do anything about it except for daven, right? Which is a big thing, but it's hard on Shabbos to be davening for such a thing. And the government's reaction was we have to be stronger, we have to be more offensive, and maybe yes, maybe that. I just asked someone, is that das Torah? I'm not sure. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. You have to ask Adam Gadol. But perhaps being offensive is just going to make them more offensive. So how do you know what to do? You really have to be a prophet to answer them. But let's get back to our pasuk here. When a person gets hurt, the three immediate reactions are, number one, I have to say something because I'm really better than him. Number two, I have to say something because it's wrong. And number three, I have to say something because it shouldn't happen again. And this is right. We're going to blow up their houses. We're going to lock them in. We're going to take an offensive in. It shouldn't happen again, but it just happens again. Okay, so maybe you'll say would happen more, right? Okay, maybe that's true by terrorists, but the Gemara says it's totally not true by somebody who upsets you. And why is that? I'm going to prove it in three ways. So neged arishon shotz laharos shu gadol v'tov mimenu she'ein tzarich lezeh. You don't have to do that. You don't have to show anybody in the world that you're better than them. And how do we know that? So the Gemara says we learn it out from butter, right? We learn it out from butter, right? V'lo mesias chema shederech oseh chema, right? Ms. Peltz told us how to make butter, right? But I don't know if you mentioned this point, what Segura is about to say. Maybe you did, I missed it, right? Mechasim hakli asher bo acholov. You have to cover it when you make. Did you mention that?
In the blender, you have to
Go. Okay, blender. I'll go over the walls, right? Kain b'teira. So too in Torah, it also means a person's spiritual level, his midos, her midos. Im adam lo me'Torah b'seiser, Torah machrezlav k'mosh chazal. A person doesn't have to tell people that he's better than them or she's better than the person. Yeah, that will come out by itself. There's an incredible story about someone here in this neighborhood, Rabbi Ozer. I don't know if you probably you might have heard of him, but he has a shir every Shabbos. 300 people come. And he's the Rosh Shiva now in Itri. How did it happen? He was just sitting many years by himself in a base medrash, and one time somebody got sick. They made a minyan. They said maybe someone will speak here. So they said there was no one else to speak. They asked him to speak. He just blew everybody away. And they realized here's a hidden gadol who's been quiet for 15 years. He hasn't said anything. And he was revealed, right? And now he's Rosh Shiva in Itri. So you never have to tell anybody in the world that you're better than them. It will happen by itself. And just the opposite. If you try to convince people that you're better than them, then you lost, right? If you're quiet, then that is the biggest possible victory you could have. Excuse me. And again, we're talking about Nikui Halev, right? Where does it come from, the desire to show people that you're better than them? That's called Sina. The Gemara is saying that's called Sina. That's Sina's Chinam. And that feeling in your heart and the need to express it is what's stopping the base of English from coming back. Yeah, the things that he's expressing now, these feelings, and people say, well, that's human nature, right? If someone just insults you, right? One Rav told me once, he was in a shul, right? I could tell it even happened. The second time I ever went to America for my kol, I was at a certain person's house in a certain neighborhood. I won't mention which one it was, and I was by some people who I went to yeshiva with, and a guy got up in front of like 30 people, and he said, Travis, he said, come after Travis. He says, you're destroying Israel. You're destroying the economy. You just sit in warm benches. You do nothing for the country. You don't serve the army. And like in front of 30 people, And for 1 week, I couldn't speak. I was just like, I wasn't, used to it yet. Not thick-skinned enough. But the point is that when you have that, and it's human nature to feel upset, right? But the Torah obligates us to go beyond human nature. If we want Mashiach to come, and we all want Mashiach to come, we have to elevate ourselves above our nature, yeah? Because Chazal have revealed to us what's stopping the Beis HaMikdash from coming is Sinas Chinam. And Sinas Chinam, it doesn't mean like if there's no reason for it. That's what people usually think. That is a mistranslation. Sinas Chinam means it's not because the person is a bona fide Russia. And the Chazon Ish says, and it's based on the Chavetz Chaim, that nobody is a Russia today, basically, more or less, with a few exceptions. Why? Because the Gemara says nobody is qualified to give to Chacham. So these people are getting up and screaming at you. They just weren't educated about how you're supposed to talk to other people. So if we would give them the proper tochach, if they have the proper teachers, yeah, so they wouldn't talk like that. I was zocha to be a student of Gedolim, and I chas v'shalom, I hope I never say that to anybody ever, because that's killing them. Rabbeinu Yonah says if you embarrass someone in public, you're a murderer, right? You're a murderer. It's called a vakrat tzicha, and it says it's better to jump into a burning fire than to embarrass someone in public. You kill them, right? So that is really that type of reaction is really seen as chinam, and it's very hard. Okay, and kol hakavod to this person who remains a nameless, who had a very difficult experience and they were quiet, right? And all the people who do that, you have to know you're bringing the gula much, much closer, because the only way to do that is to extricate, is that the right word? The hatred, the feelings from your heart, and just, to be quiet. So that's the first thing you learn from butter. The first thing is it's covered up. You don't have to say anything about yourself, right? The best thing you can say about yourself is be quiet, because that's the biggest statement that you're a great person, right? Can you move those flowers? Just move them. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So that's the first thing. The second thing is like this. Sarach Lenakos is atzmo. This is really, I love this. This is amazing. The second thing is you want to show that it's not true, right? Somebody says this, that, and the other. It's not true. So what's the mashal for that? Amar gam kein shetova yoser shtika. Why? Mitzachotim. Kishirotz lenakos achotim biyoser v'shog biyoser. Let's say you have a bloody nose, right? And you start going like this, right? He says that's what it's like to tell somebody that they're wrong, right? Kishirotz lenakos achotim biyoser v'shog biyoser yotzi dam. Umamayas also yotzer. That's what happens. If you have a bloody nose and you rub your nose, that's the worst thing you do. More blood's going to come out. Right? If you want to clean your name, right? If you say, I'm not that, so what are you telling the guy? You're wrong. You're stupid. I'm really like the right guy, and you're stupid. He's just going to try to prove himself, right? So the Gemara says we learn from wiping a bloody nose that it's just better to keep quiet, right? And that's the second thing. Okay. So far, so good. Cover up. Don't say anything good about yourself. Don't try to say the other guy is wrong, right? Everyone remembers the story about in the bus when the bus driver closed the door on my foot, If I start telling him, it's your fault, you closed the door on my foot, he was blaming me. I'm breaking the door of his bus, and I'm going to cause him a heavy fine. I didn't say, you're, I didn't say anything. I was just quiet. I said, I'm sorry, I apologize. Okay, so that's the second thing, because I learned this Gua many times. The third one is shlo yinavalos yoser. In the future, I'm trying to prevent future incidents. Right? Let's say your face is covered with sweat, right? So what do? You take the sweat and rub it all over your face, right? You don't want to be more dirty, right? It's just going to make you more dirty. What do? You say to him, how can you say these things to me, right? you're just getting more and more angry, and you're also expressing anger because of that. Even if you're not angry, but you're trying to like tell him how wrong he is, right? Right? As chavrecha hashomeh divrei kasecha, your friend who hears your kas, yarchev ribo case yoser, it's just going to make it worse. Im kain mizet tosi riv yoser, you just make it worse. Va'amar mitzapayim kon shchas v'zal haytagra demaya lebitka demaya kivan the Rabbi Rabbi. It's talking about like the boy who stuck his finger in a dam, right? You have a what do they call that? A dam. The water is about to explode, right? The bigger the crack gets, the more the water is going to come out. So the more you argue with the person, the bigger the crack gets in the water, and the more likely the dam is just going to explode, right? So this is really, really extremely powerful, right? The best, and I think every gadol I've ever had a connection with has told me this is the eitzah. The best eitzah you could have at all, if somebody is upset with you, is just to be quiet, especially if they're wrong. If someone is right, then you can say, "Wow, you're right." Like I really missed the boat. But usually, that's not so often, that happens, and a person has to be very, very great to be able to say that. The best thing is just to be quiet. And one time, Rev, who was it? Rev, he wrote to Eliyahu Lapian. He went to visit the Briskerov, right? And for 15 minutes, he didn't say anything. He just came in, he sat down, just sat there, and he left. And the Briskerov says he's brilliant, right? Because to be quiet is very hard, When, I think I mentioned this before, when Rav Gabi Sassani was learning my kol, and his 7 children passed away, so Moshe Shapiro came and spoke, and he said, the only thing you could say now is to be quiet. Because there's sometimes you have to be quiet. And he said, what we're missing in our generation is just to be quiet. Because so many people, they feel they have to speak, and sometimes you just have to be quiet. Right? And that's really what the Gra is saying. Especially when someone is upset with you, it's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that says, don't try to mafai someone at the time of their anger. It just doesn't work. It's just totally inefficient. It's totally inefficient, and what we're adding here today is that Lefinis Daiti, these incidents are going to bring the gula. Rav Chaim Kanievsky, right? He said next time someone wanted to have children, so next time someone embarrasses you, get a bracha from them, and you have the koach bracha. The reason you have the koach bracha is because it elevates you to the highest madrega by cleaning out your heart. How do you come to a high madrega? What is a magic trick? No, because when you do that, your heart, all of the sina goes away, and the Shekhinah comes in your heart, and you're like what's called a merkava to the Shekhinah. You're like a chariot to the divine presence. You're the Beis Hamikdash, right? Every single Jew, and I said on this year, I stopped talking to the men because they always argue with me. Who says it's true? Who made you a prophet? How do you know? Etc. And then they don't do it. I spoke in America in a certain yeshiva, and I said such a clear point, and I brought my proofs, and they said, yeah, maybe, but maybe it's not meant to be literally, and the goal's not going to come. You tell something to women, they have real emunah, and they just say, Chazal say it, then I'm going to do it, right? I believe firmly if 100,000, I just picked a number arbitrarily because it seemed like a good number, right? And by the way, on Shabbos, I saw an incredible thing in Rav Moshe Sternberg's Parsha sheet. He said, according to some opinions, only 1 out of 5,000 Jews came out of Mitzrayim. Some say 1 in 5, some say 1 in 50, some say 1 in 5, some say 1 in 5,000, which means there are 150 billion Jews in Mitzrayim, and only 3 million came out. So what do we need? We want to be the ones who come out. There's not 150 billion people in the world, right? It's hard to understand like how many people fit in Mitzrayim. There must have been pretty tight quarters there. But the point is, if we want to be the people who are nigolim, and bring the gula, and Rosh Hashanah says, if you are a part of bringing the gula, it'll be called on your name, right? It'll be, when they put up the plaque, you don't need a plaque, but it'll be your gula, right? And the more, and I told this woman who, very courageously stood up and was quiet, he said, you'll be on the front line. Because that's it. These nisyonos that the Gra is saying, that completely cleans out your heart, And once your heart is clean, the Shekhinah is there. And v'shchanti b'socham, if enough women clean out their hearts, the Shekhinah will rest in it. And if it's enough, 100,000, I don't know. I'm not in charge, But it seems like that's a nice number to me. Maybe 200,000 would be even better. Maybe 50,000 is enough. Who knows, right? But nobody in this case can exempt themselves, especially if they have the kochos and nefesh to do it. Because the Rambam says like this in Hilchos Tshuva, he says a person always has to look at themselves as if the world is half chayiv and half zakai. And every single woman who could do this, right, she could very likely be the one, because we don't know, right? And the truth is, the more you clean out your heart, the more the Shekhinah is shayr, right? So you could have a very big heart. You could be like 10 people, right? It could be the amount of Shekhinah that could be in your heart could be the amount that could to build the base of English. So I think, and especially, I said, this year, right, is Motzi Shemitah, number one. Number two, it's also a war going on with Russia. Like, it's going on so long already. I don't know. How long is it already? It's over a year, right? Yeah. And first of all, the Medrash and Bereshis, says, I think it's in Vishlach, it says when you see the nations of the world fighting, it's Ragli Mashiach, number two. Number three, the Vilna Gaon, we have a Masorah that says it's going to be when Russia goes into Crimea, and there's all sorts of things all the time I hear about Crimea. The final one, it has to be Istanbul. So I don't know. I'm always like trying to find out what's happening with Istanbul, whatever that is, And number four is that it says Benisa Nasid in Legoil, right? The first gula was in Nisan, and the last gula is supposed to be Nisan. So we're standing here on the threshold where we're like almost halfway through Shvat. It's another 6 weeks. 10 weeks if you count all Nisan, right? And again, we don't know. We don't know if enough people will have cleaned their hearts out that the gula will come. But look, Pesach cleaning, right? They start around, Tu B'Shvat, right? No, that's an Obriya, right? Okay, Purim. But now's the time. You have Tu B'Shvat? People say, Purim, okay. But now is the start for Mashiach cleaning. We call that Mashiach cleaning. Just clean out your heart. Do everything you can possible. Everything you can possible. If there's anybody you're upset with, just try to my Rebbe or Shlomo Rebbe used to have an expression, like water off a duck's back. You ever seen, today it was raining a lot. You see the water cascading down the cars and the streets. It's just flowing, Okay, this person is upset with me. I was at the coastal yesterday and there was 3, 4 in the morning. People are in a bad mood sometimes. And there was a guy just sitting there and someone was trying to throw him out. He says, we're going to have a mini here soon. You have to leave. And the guy was just sitting there and they were screaming more and more. And a guy comes over and says, he's a nice guy. He's a guy, and he said, and he ended it, I thought that was so beautiful, is that people making shalom, and that is what's going to bring the gula, not okay. It's very nice to have Kabbalistic things when you're davening and think about the spheres and things of Partzufim, or this, that, and the other. But this is really what's going to bring it. And I said in that shir an amazing story from Rav Chaim Shmulevitz when during the war, the whole Mir Yeshiva was in a bomb shelter, and a bomb hit and it didn't explode, and everyone thought it must be because of the Torah, right? And Rav Chaim Shmulevitz got up the next day and said it wasn't because of the Torah. There was a woman there who was an aguna, and she said, "I'm mochel my husband for all the tremendous pain he caused me, and I have absolutely no bad feelings against him." And said Rav Chaim Shmulevitz, that's why we're all saved, the entire Mir Yeshiva, right? So you see the incredible power that it has, of Nikui Alev. And that's it. It's really about just closing your mouth. And it's not just. It's really, really hard. We all know, like that. So this is something. But it's not the closing your mouth. It's the Nikui Alev, right? The closing your mouth is just a sign that you've successfully cleaned your heart out to the point where you can keep quiet. Because it's just not going to happen, right? You don't really have Bechira. If you haven't cleaned out your heart, you just won't be able to do it, right? But if you cleaned out your heart, then you'll be able to be omid in this. Okay. I want to do 2 more psukim, and then Bezrat Hashem next week we'll take off with him, because these are just also very connected to what we just said. The pasuk before Lamed Beis, it says, Im navalta b'tsnase v'im zimos yad lepeh. Right? Navalta is from Lashon Nevela, right? If someone treats you like a piece of nevela, which is pretty bad, right? Im nevalta al yedei shadibra lecha dibri nevala. They said, you're right. I think the Israelis like to say that, you're nevela, right? But zed nevela, zed treifa. That's what they say. Bisnase, who machbas hisnascha, right? Oh, so this is an important point. This is a very important point, right? We're talking about the greatness of being quiet when someone insults you. But why did you get insulted, right? So the Gra is saying something very interesting. I wouldn't have thought of this myself. He's saying it could be that you held yourself a little bit too much, right? Shirati lisnascha, lisnasi. You wanted to show that you were really better than this person or somebody else. As Chazal say, kol harodef achar kavod, right? Now, there's a very big chiddush in the Gra. Like it's hard. I spent like an hour on this pasuk to try to figure out what he's saying, but I believe this is what he means, right? It says anybody who runs after kavod, kavod runs away from them. So the Gra is saying if somebody is insulting you, right? Again, it's a test in Amunah, right? Number one, but number two, Hashem is showing you that you are a little bit too concerned with your own honor, right? And it just might be that you have to be a little more humble, right? Because anybody who chases after kavod, kavod runs away. How does that express yourself? How does kavod run away from you? Because somebody's insulting you. If somebody's insulting you, right? Number one, it's a test to keep quiet. But number two, it's also a sign you should try to be a little bit more humble, right? A little bit more humble, right? And it's not, we all know how to be more humble, right? Okay. V'im zivos, shata rotze lachshov eich lahashim merfecha mipnei ribos. If you're thinking about how to answer back, right? So he says, az mazchircha yad lepev lo tishel klav. Very similar to what he said in the last pasuk, just much shorter. He says the best thing is just cover your mouth, right? So again, we said from the Gra, if somebody says something that you're not happy with, just be quiet. 3 good reasons, right? Number one, you don't need to say anything because the truth will come out. Number two, it won't help, right? It just make matters worse, like rubbing your nose with the thing. And number three is you're actually just firing him more to say more things, right? That's number one. And number two, realize that if this is happening to you, then there's probably some element where you were overly concerned about your own honor for some reason, yeah? And just cover your mouth, and that's the best thing. Okay, I want to do one more pasuk, and this is because I made a mistake. My bookmark was like from a few weeks ago, and I thought we were up to Yud Gimel. So I just want to see again. It'll be Chazara. We'll finish with this. It's Perek Yud Gimel pasuk Beis. 1 second, is that right? Yes. Right. Okay. Sounds like this. Mipri pi'ish yochel tov, v'nefesh boktem chamas. You eat you can how's that? From the person's mouth will come the fruits of his labors, and the nefesh of a boged is chamas. Says the Gra, the perus pri pi'ish yochel shah perus shal tzaddik, the fruit of a tzaddik don't come in this world. They come in the next world. If you're good to people, right? Then you get payers. That pre-pi'ish. Shatzadik nikra ish. Right? As we see, he brings a pasuk. The ikar payers who mital matera shukaneged kulam. Me pre-pi'ish imutov v'nefesh. Oh, that's okay. The tzaddik who learns Torah and davens and says good things, that you'll get rewarded for. Now, but this is the point I want to bring out. The nefesh of the rebellious ones who rebel against Hashem is violence. Habogdim yochel chamas asher b'piyam. They're always saying terrible things in their mouth, like we said from the other psukim, right? V'hu chamas dvarim. It means violent communication. Kimash mecharfin lechavreim hu nikra gam kein chamas. That's also chamas, right? Kimalei it's chamas. Okay. Now listen to this. This is like really, maybe we said this before, we went over it, but I saw it again and knocked my socks off, right? Look at the Dvar Mabel. It says it was Maliyar it's Chamas. I always thought the Chamas was the people who were robbing, right? That's what you thought? Did you think that? You thought that? What? Right. It's all wrong, right? Says the girl like this. Um, right. He says like this. Az yochlo achamas, kmosh kasev oil vashol tov. One second. One second. Of Amar Medrash. Gama nigzal hayal malachamas. Shumacharef malachamas devarim. Shu hoara labrios. You hear this? When somebody got stolen from, he was cursing the person who stole from him. And because of that, you know the famous story with the Chavetz Chaim, right? Someone stole from me and said, I'm holding you, right? So it was the Mali Aretz Chamas was the people getting stolen from, right? Those were the people, right? Also, Rav Moshe Feinstein, someone once, I read this in one of Rav Kanaktalas' books, someone robbed him, and he says, he called him back and said, why are you robbing people? You know, only Rav Moshe could get away with that. And he said, because I don't have money. He said, I'm going to get you a job. He called up his friend, and he called up one of his students who was running a clothing store, and he got him a job. And the guy was talented. He worked his way up to the manager of the store. And it says by Rav Moshe's Levaya, this, African-American guy, with tears coming down his eyes, right? So you see, you get robbed by somebody, I think I told you that story. I once got robbed on was it F train? I remember. It was one of them. Maybe it was number 4 train, I remember. But, I didn't know what to do. So, bin Shamayim, I started acting like crazy. And 4 of them went away. There were 5 of them. And then the 5th one just sat down to me and started telling me his problems. And bin Shamayim, so I just started giving chizuk. He said, I'm going to drop out. I was in John Jay College and I dropped out. And I became a drug addict, right? And I said, you know what? You can make it. You get back and you could go. He said, really? I said, yeah, you could really do it. I was only 15 at the time. I don't know. It was an ace. Like Hashem put the words in my mouth. And he got off the train. He shook my hands. Can you believe that story? And I'm telling you, it really happened because it happened to me. So that's the thing. Someone robs a person, chas v'shalom. Someone once robbed a Rigner Miller. He put his arms around his neck and says, we're good friends, and the guy ran away. But that's the point. Even the person who robs you, that's ad kidei kach, right? And that's why the world was destroyed. Kimal Aretz Chamas. Because at least, we could say a wonderful shot now, I just realized this. At least if the people who were being robbed were quiet, the Shekhinah would still be in their hearts, and the world would have been destroyed. What happened? The people were being robbed, even the Shekhinah left their hearts. It left everybody's hearts. The people were violent, they were violent. And the people who were being robbed, they had hatred. So, Mali Aretz Chamas, it was filled with it. People were either being robbed, or they were just cursing people. And that's why the entire world was destroyed. I thought that was an incredible shot, right? It defies everything we learned in kindergarten, right? What are we going to do about that? Write a letter to the school. Okay. V'nefesh bogdim she'ikar achamas devarim yochel nefesh shubalam haba. Right? V'kan ma'at mi'peroseh. Right? The main thing the punishment we'll get in the next world, in this world, we'll have also like some sorrows from it. Right? So again, right? We learned incredible things here today. Right? If a person unjustly things, you should be quiet, not say anything, put your hand in your mouth, realize it won't help at all. Think about the bloody nose, oh yeah, I'm going to rub it for half an hour till my face, or your face is full of, mud, so you decide to rub your face, with the mud, right? It won't help. And number 2, even if you get robbed, don't curse the person, right? Don't curse the person. Say, I'm mochel the person, I feel bad. Remember the Aguna who was in the mirror, and she was mochel everyone. That saved the entire yeshiva, And this is what's going to bring the gula, right? 100,000 righteous women who clean out their hearts from sinas china as much as possible. And look, this is a tall order, right? I mean, when I did it, it was an open miracle because I just ran a track meet, and every time I ran, I would push myself so hard I would collapse. So I just collapsed, and then I got on. I remember it was a 1 or 4 train. It was from uptown. And, I was so tired. I got in the last car of the train was a drug car, which I forgot. And then I got mugged, And then, the guy starts talking to me. And miraculously, I tell him, chizuk, It's incredible. But that's really what we have to do, Don't be upset. Even when someone robs you, Because, we learned from the Quran, Yud Aleph Yud Tes, the most important Quran, the whole Sefer, is there's never reason to get upset with anybody ever. Because Min Hashamayim. It's Min Hashamayim. So, this is very, very hard. But Lefinas Daiti, and I think the Gra is saying it. I'm just repeating what he said. And you look in Rav Gershon Edelstein's Parshas, almost every week he says this. He just says it and he says it again. He says it in a different way. And I was by Rav David Cohen this week. He said the same thing. And by Rav, who else? Rav Safrani is talking about it all the time, and Rav Sternbach talks about it. All the Gedolim are saying this, each one in their own way. But it just has to go into our hearts. We have to do it. Rav Sternbach, they made a few years ago a demonstration by his house, because he permitted some buildings to take place in Beit Shemesh, and people got very upset. So what they do, they came to his house, they threw dirty diapers, rotten fruit, and I see him he's smiling. I said, why is the so happy? He said, I got all their mitzvahs, they got all my averos. I wish they would come every single day, So, no upset at all, just adarabba, This is what we really have to do, and it's for Gedolim, but each and every one of us, and the proof is if Hashem sends you the Nesoy. If Hashem sends you the test, and I know people, they have very difficult marriages, they have very difficult children, they have very difficult neighbors, everybody is given a difficult situation depending on their kochos and nefesh, right? And the Medrash says that when Hashem wants, it gives a mashal if somebody wants to sell pottery, and and the person goes around and bangs the pot to see if it's a good pot, you bang it to see if it's going to hold up. So too, when Hashem wants to show if a person is great, he gives them a hard nesoyan. If Hashem has put you in a situation which is very, very hard, like this woman called me up this week, a very hard situation, but it means that you have the personal greatness to rise to the occasion and to do it. Even if you don't, it's a gadol, right? Every single woman and man, hopefully, if they listen to what I'm saying, which they don't, but they could be a gadol, right? And I just finished with this point. Chazal say that the Gula Mitzrayim was because of Nashim Tzukanios, right? And I saw the Chidah says because they had a Muna, right? It says when a person has a Muna, that brings the Shechina. A Muna brings the Shechina. The Gra says all Sinas Chinam comes from a lack of a Muna. Why? Because if a person has a Muna, they'll understand Hashem sent this. Hashem sent this test. It has nothing to do with this person, right? Hashem. I was walking the other day, and I had to speak to a person who was wasn't on the best terms with. I said, "Listen, is this person going to be upset with me? I have to have it, so I accept it." I got to the person, and we were best friends. They forgot everything, the reasons they were upset with me. So that's it. If we have emunah in Hashem, then we can accept anything that happens. Yeah, and we can totally clear our hearts, and the Gula will come. There's no reason at all why this Pesach we shouldn't bring a Korban Pesach. It's the only thing. Chazal have told us everything. The only thing stopping the Gula is because of Sinas China. And Sinas China means just to clean out your hearts. I believe 100,000. Look, I might be wrong in the number. It might be less. It might be more. But each woman who takes on herself, right, in any situation I can, I'm going to try my hardest not to say anything bad, not to feel any bad feelings, no matter what happens. I'm going to bring a Korban Pesach this year. We're going to do it. We'll have a Chabura. B'ezrat Hashem. Amen. Kain Tirot.